Welcome to Old Iron Machine Works. One of my recent videos was rebuilding those cylinders off of a Caterpillar backhoe, and I showed that little glimpse of the hydraulic valve, and I had a couple comments of some people wanting to see the repair of it. Unfortunately, I originally wasn't going to film it, so I already got the spools out of the hydraulic valve, and what this does is this valve bolts underneath of a equipment trailer, and it actually works the upper deck ramp and then the ramps in the back. And it had a blowout, and when the tire blew out, it took out the end of the valve spools where it had the clevises bolted on and kind of busted them up. So this repair will just be repairing the valve body. This picture is after it's been repaired and put back in. But originally they had a plate that covered it up and protected it. And when the trailer was bought, the plate was not there. So when it had the blowout, tire went up and did the damage. This trailer actually belongs to a friend of mine. And another friend of mine actually did the repairs as far as removing the valve and putting it back on. And so I didn't have a whole lot of footage of some of the damage on the into the spools. Here I'm just chucking up in the chuck. It was going to be a pretty simple job, just drill out and remove the broken threaded part on the spools and clean them up, and away we go. And the threaded parts are 5/16 coarse thread, so pretty simple deal, just drilling and removing. There's been others that have showed this style of easy out on their channels. This is a pretty new set here, a Blue Point sold by Snap-on. All my other sets are rigid, which I believe rigid actually makes them. But they are always my first go-to for easy outs. I've been using them for many years, and I really like the way they work over the tapered easy outs. They're pretty much straight shank with ribs, to where the ribs just drive all the way in, and they do a less job of wanting to swell out whatever you're trying to get out. Here I'm just running a tap in just to clean up the threads. The clevises were Loctited in, and here I'm just kind of cleaning the Loctite out. Here I just got a brass bushing, basically 5/8 hole that I just split for clamping the spool up in the vise. And as you can see, there's a little bend in every one of the spools right at the very end from where the clevis got hit in one direction and broke off. It barely bent a little area right at the end of the spools. And when you would push the spools in, they would want to lock up. And here's just a picture of one of the clevises going back in, and they're all Loctited in. Well, what happened? Pretend that hammer's the tire. When it hit the clevis, of course, it broke most of them off. But what it did, when I say bent, I don't mean like bent like regular bend with the shaft. I meant bent where you could see the black marker there, and the direction of the bolt where it broke off left a little high spot, almost like a little cam lobe. And when you would go to push the cylinder in, it would want to hang up. So here I'm getting set up to grind that high spot off. Hydraulic valves run some of the tightest clearances you can run and still have them be able to work freely in and out. Here I'm setting the dial indicator up, and you'll see at first I'm checking to see if I got any kind of run out closest to my 3 points on my steady rest, which is the most accurate thing I have for spinning a precision shaft. And then I'm going to bring it out all the way to the end, and then hopefully you'll be able to see the indicator. I believe this particular spool ran right around the thousandths out, right in one little area. And I varied between a half thousandths and a thousandths on all 5 spools. Okay, here I'm set up on my Cincinnati lathe to just barely kiss the outside of that shaft. I have a very, very cheap painter's drop cloth that tears super easy. I am turning the main chuck slow. And as far as comfort level, some people may not, may not feel comfortable throwing something over the lathe and doing this. I think safety is an individual thing. If somebody's not comfortable doing something, by all means, don't do it. I was totally comfortable with my setup here, and I really didn't want the grinding all over my lathe. Basically, I just took it to where the stone was kissing and where I could see it barely contacting the shaft all the way around is as far as I went. I did not want to remove any excess material than I had to. This do-more grinder generally has a really nice guard on the end of it, but in this situation I had to put a smaller stone on, take the guard off, just with the tight quarters to get in to grind it. Here the shaft is running on the 3 brass tips on the steady rest, and then I got a little copper sleeve in the jaws of the chuck where it clamps to the other end of the shaft. Like I mentioned earlier, the chuck's not turning very fast underneath the plastic, and then I just popped a hole in the plastic, and then I got 3 magnets holding the plastic up away from the stone, just so the stone doesn't want to grab it. The main valve assembly had 6 spools, and one of them I'm going to drill out in place. It took more disassembling on the valve, and on the lathe here I did a total of 5. Here just measuring, making sure I got the high spot on the end ground out. I was very happy with the way they cleaned up with the grinder. Now I'll run them in another lathe with a stone and just polish it up just a little bit. This one's been hand stoned on the lathe and then just polished with some emery, and it just runs in and out of an O-ring. Here I'm just taking the stone, and if you look super close at the grinding, of course you can tell it had a little bit of a grinding pattern to it from a grinding wheel. So here I'm just barely just smoothing the end out before I go over it with the emery. Here I'm putting a spring and spring cups on the one end and putting the new clevises on the other. Loctite it in and ready to reassemble. If you never had a valve apart, most people know that when you push hydraulic lever one way, it springs back to center. That's what that spring and those spring cups do. That's what recenters the valve. These are non-detent style valves, by the way, which means that as soon as you let off the handle, they spring load right back to neutral. The clevises get Loctited in. Of course, when the clevis is hooked up to the linkage, the clevis can't spin, but there's nothing that keeps the valve spool from rotating inside the valve body itself. You know, that's why it's a good idea to just put a little Loctite on it and keep the spool from unscrewing from the clevis. Here I got one of my favorite scrapers. I use them all the time. And I use a shop vac. I don't like compressed air on stuff like this. Compressed air, really easy to blow crud in crevices where you don't want it. So I would rather just do a little scraping and try to do as much with the shop vac, sucking the crap out rather than blowing it in. All right, we got the 5 valve spools back in place, and this 6th one was a little bit more involved removing. But as you can see here, it wasn't hanging up. So on this one here, I decided to just drill it and remove the broken stud right in place. I do another job that requires working with 5/8 round material where I make tapered plugs. And I actually made this little jig for center punching the end of them, where here I'm going to go ahead and use it for a little drill guide. Where it broke off, it kind of broke off at an angle, which makes it pretty hard to get it drilled straight. So the guide, you know, it makes all the difference. Here I'll take my time until I know that I've started all the way in with the bit. And right now it's kind of like drilling, as you can see, like on one side. Once I know the bit started all the way around, then I can push a little bit more and be a little bit more aggressive. Here I'm leaving the old O-ring in just to keep any chips or any crud from getting inside the valve. Anytime I'm drilling something out by hand, I always make sure I have a really nice sharp bit. I'll always try to drill where I drill all the way through and remove all the material. The more material you can move from a broken stud, the easier it is to get it out. Now the easy outs that I use, you use a specific size drill bit for whatever easy out you're using. And in this case, the drill is just tad larger than the hole I've already drilled out. So now I just got to go in and just drill out the hole for the easy out. Here I'm going to swap out the O-ring, pull the old one out, put the new one on. And I just wanted to point out on these particular hydraulic valves, these O-rings do not see high pressure all the way out to them. They have a return to the tank. Once the high pressure gets past a certain point, then it'll get into some of the ports on the valve and return to the tank before it sees high pressure at the O-rings. If anybody's wondering what the colored yarn is for, that was a first for me also. Um, this is from the friend that's doing the job, and the friend is also was my first shop foreman in 1981 when I went to work for the tractor dealership, and he's been still independent mechanic for several years and still plugging away. But anyway, he uses that yarn just to identify where the hoses go, and I thought, pretty clever idea. Well, that brings us to the end of the video. This actually belongs to a friend of mine. They started farming in the late 80s, just outside of Rio Vista. And if you watched a couple of my later videos, I introduced Jack. Jack was helping me with a couple projects. And anyway, this belongs to Jack's dad. And they just use it for moving equipment around. I actually was asking him. I said, "How big of equipment can I look for?" And he said, "You know, he can haul up to 48,000 pounds." So that kind of opens up the door pretty good. I was told since the video they did get a plate bolted up in there. You know, so hopefully if there's another problem with the tire come apart, it won't destroy it. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to check out the video. If you like this kind of content and not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button. Thumbs up are always great. I am approaching 5,000 subscribers, which is pretty amazing since I haven't even finished setting up my about me on the YouTube. But look out for a 5,000 sub giveaway. It'll probably be in just some other random video. I don't want to use the sub giveaway as a way of trying to gain subscribers. So just kind of keep an eye out for any future videos. I want to thank John for coming out and doing a quick demonstration of the trailer. And once again, I appreciate you guys taking the time, and we'll see you on the next video.
Very cool. Thank you, John.
Again, thanks for watching.